Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about the Egyptians in Age of Mythology Retold. What are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? Well, their principal strength is actually their economy, for a number of reasons. First off, when you look at Ra, when you look at Isis, and even when you look at Set, each of them has some fairly substantial economic benefits as the major gods. And then there's also economic benefits with the minor gods. But with the major gods, you either get a significant farming bonus and the empowering benefit for Ra, which is not particularly useful in 1v1 necessarily. Ra is certainly the weakest of the Egyptian major gods. But in a team game, in a long game, it is incredibly useful to have that extra farming benefit via rain. Well, Isis, well, you're more or less pumping out gold. Because while certainly someone like 4 can put up gold mines, and he does have dwarves, prosperity will give you so much gold is absurd. And also you get the food trickle benefit with the flood of the Nile. Then you have Set. Now Set's economic benefit, beyond, his god benefit of reducing the cost of nearby units and barracks in Migdal Stronghold to monuments by 5%, is good, really good actually, as well as reducing the cost of barracks, siege works, and Migdal Stronghold by 25%. Both of these really good. But the important benefit for Set is the fact that you can convert wild animals. Now here's the thing. You have a baboon of Set that works as a scout. You still want to put up obelisks and all that, but what you want to do, really, you want to take your initial priest and you want to start converting those animals and sending them back to your base. Because the real significant benefit of the animals of Set is not as combat units, though you can certainly use them in that respect, but it's the food benefit, because it means you can keep dealing with hunted animals, and that gives you a lot more food than even fully upgraded farms do. So those are some of the very tangible benefits for the Egyptian economy. And that is the key advantage. Then, favor. Let's talk about that for a second. While Egyptian favor is not necessarily the highest in the game, the Greeks can generate more favor faster, the Atlanteans can generate more favor faster. The thing about the Egyptians is once you build a monument and you pay that initial cost for that monument, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Which means you can get more villagers to worry about things like food, to worry about things like wood and gold. And on top of that, you also don't need to worry as much about wood as anyone else. Because when we look at Egyptian structures, none of them cost any wood. They may take longer to build, but none of them are going to require wood. Many of them may require gold, things like, and of course, Secret of the Titans and all that. But many of them may require gold if we're thinking about, a temple or a Migdal stronghold, or barracks. But the benefit that you save up throughout the course of a game, especially early on, by not requiring villagers on wood, is fairly significant. You still want villagers on wood, but you have these kind of benefits that when you add them all together, and you add the minor god benefit, like things like funeral rites, or the ability of generating more favor from monuments with 25%, you end up with the best economy in the game by far. We could talk about the Atlanteans, absolutely. I don't deny the benefits of the Atlantean economy. Keep in mind, however, that there are trade-offs that you do get with the Atlanteans for the economy. So those are some of the very substantial benefits. Also, your scouting ability, while not the fastest, like Pegasus are really fast, is reliable. Because you put the obelisks, and they're cheap on the map. You put them on the map, and you gain permanent vision while the obelisk is still up. And sure, they're easy enough to destroy, but they're just 10 gold. And you will be incentivized to get more gold than anyone else when you're playing the Egyptians. So very substantial benefits with respect to like just being able to constantly build obelisks around the map and having information. Oh, the enemy wants to do a flanking attack. They want to strike your undefended area. Well, just put a bunch of obelisks in that area and they will give you that. And you don't have to manage it. You don't have to micro it. You don't have to worry about, like, once an obelisk is there, you can just forget it until it's destroyed, if it is destroyed by the enemy. So those are substantial benefits. The downside, a very critical downside for the Egyptians, is that their barracks units are genuinely the worst units in the game. Like, when you look at spearmen, axemen, and slingers, even with full upgrades, they're not going to compare with the basic infantry that other civilizations do have. So that is a significant downside that the Egyptians do have. Their myth units, when we consider that aspect as well, their myth units aren't really that strong either. They are specialized, like things like Anubites, for instance, really good hit and run units. Hierosphinxes, kind of hit and run or AoE damage. Wadjets, not so great, but you do have rocks. You do have the Citadel for defenses as, as a god power. You have Scarab as a living siege weapon. You have mummies, which are pretty solid, Avengers. But these are not the strongest myth units in the game. Fair enough. But you get favor at such a steady, constant rate that you may be able to actually get more myth units than other civilizations. So it is a question about quantity. But you also do actually have a quality. So you may lack quality in certain areas, but you do have quality in other areas. When we look at the Migdal Stronghold, or the spam of priests, like, priests may not be the best myth-killing capability in the game, but they do heal, they are ranged, and while things like the Godis, the Herseers, obviously the Greek heroes, or the Atlantean heroes can be better overall, the fact that you have a unit that you're going to train anyway, you're going to want to train anyway, just for a healing aspect, and then combine that with other units can give you a substantial advantage. But then we talk about chariot archers. They can be very vulnerable, they can be a bit expensive, but you have the capability of really harassing an enemy's economy with these chariot archers. Or you can use camel riders to deal with enemy ranged soldiers or cavalry, get regeneration on them, for instance with certain upgrades, or get extra HP, speed, hit points, and melee attack damage. Or war elephants, expensive unit, but really durable, really strong, really capable of holding its own. Slow, absolutely, but very strong unit. And then we gotta talk about, like, the siege of the Egyptians, because I think the Egyptians have the best siege in the game. Not necessarily the siege towers. We can, like, the Greeks have their own siege tower version, the Heliopoli. Those are more durable. They will last longer. But the siege towers, while they certainly don't have that level of resistance, they can do a lot of damage against buildings. They can actually hold their own against a lot of infantry units as well, because that's one of the benefits of siege towers. Like, one of the things I've noticed with Retold as opposed to pre-Retold is siege towers are significantly more useful against infantry units or human soldiers than they were before, though still very squishy. But the significant benefit over here for Egyptians is the catapult. Against buildings, catapults just do a lot of damage. And there's no comparison. Yes, the Greeks have the Petroboli, right? You can talk about the fire siphon that the Atlanteans have. Absolutely no discussion on that point. But, like, when you're just looking to build a siege unit that destroys enemy buildings very quickly, and while it's vulnerable, obviously, right, slow, all that, it is very, very effective at doing damage in a single shot against buildings. So those are the kind of benefits for Egyptians. That flexibility, because you don't need to worry too much about wood from a building standpoint. You only need to worry about units and various upgrades. Your favor is constant, so once you build up the monuments, you don't have to worry about that. You do lack units in tier 2, in particular, infantry units, so you might be vulnerable, to enemy raids, all that. But you certainly can push to tier 3 faster than a lot of other people, in quite a few ways, depending on which god you choose to play. So economic benefits, high-end benefits, also god powers. Son of Osiris, things like Meteor, Raise the Dead, even Locust Swarm, or Eclipse. All of these things are fairly powerful benefits. I don't think, Plague of Serpent isn't necessarily that useful. It's very situational. But, there's always some benefits. I mean, the benefit of Anubis really is Necropolis and Anubites. You can also buff your Spearmen. The thing about Egyptians is with a lot of the upgrades that you can stack up, you can make a lot of units, different playstyles work, depend on who you're going with. You do have flexibility of roster. You have slingers that are good against archers, even if they're not so great against anything else. But you do have answers to a lot of possibilities. Camel riders versus cavalry and enemy archers, elephants against everything, chariot archers for harassment, siege units. There are tons of benefits to Egyptians. But you have to build it up. You have vulnerabilities. You have some downright useless units. Or very limited use units like the Wadjets. This unit, I don't think it really works all that well. Honestly, probably one of the worst, if not the worst, myth unit in the game. Just my perspective. I understand there are situations where you might use them. I get that. But, never been impressed too much by the Wadjet. There's better ranged units. There's better ranged myth units in the game. So it is that weakness in terms of certain units, unless you have upgrades for them. Specific god upgrades, going for I'm going to get bullets for my slingers, as an example. So there are some things that work, some things that don't necessarily work for the Egyptians. Strengths, economy, weakness, certain units, though not necessarily all of them. Strength, constant favor generation, though maybe not the huge amount of favor that you can say generate very quickly with the Greeks if you assign a lot of workers to temples. So it is those kind of trade-offs, but steady. But it is a steady trickle of favor as opposed to, say, bursts that you may have with the Greeks, that you may have with the Norse. With the Atlanteans, it's a bit complicated because you do need those oracles to go there and scout the map. So, I think if you're playing any decently long game, you will benefit quite a lot from the monuments and the way they generate favor compared to the other civilizations. That's all I had to say. Costin, signing out.